Hi there, Vasco Duarte here, your host. I wanted to share a story with you. You know how sometimes Agile just feels like following another checklist? When processes and frameworks feel more important than what we are trying to achieve, and sometimes even like handcuffs. I was talking to a customer of the Global Agile Summit, and he used a term that I kind of stuck in my mind. He said, "I have agile fatigue." And I've heard that a lot from people since then. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. So we started thinking, and at the Global Agile Summit, which is happening this May, we're bringing together practitioners who've actually done that, who've broken free from this, install the framework kind of mindset. We want to focus the summit on real-life, first-person stories of Agile succeeding that inspire you to action. We're talking real experiences, practical solutions, and of course, amazing insights from leaders like Gojko Adzic, who will be one of the keynote speakers, and Jürgen Apelo, who will be one of the keynote speakers as well. If you're ready to leave the Agile fatigue behind, just join us in Tallinn. The early bird tickets are now available at the globalagilesummit.com. And mark your calendars. We will have workshops on May 18th, that's a Sunday. And then the conference itself will happen on May 19th and 20th of 2025 in Tallinn, Estonia. So let's make Agile exciting again. And remember, go to globalagilesummit.com, that is, and get your early bird ticket now. It will only be available until early March, so grab it now. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. This week, joining us from the US is Chrissy Fleming. Hey, Chrissy.
Hello.
Welcome to
Hi,
the show.
Thanks so much. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. So Chrissy came to Scrum Mastering via product management. We'll hear more about that in a second. And a deep love of seeing teams work together. She spent 15 years in the New York tech scene and is currently an associate principal in business agility with Turnberry Solutions. She also has her own company where she coaches and helps businesses and technologies with their development. So, Chrissy, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Well, first, I should clarify, I've never actually had the honor of holding the title Scrum Master. I've had to wear the hat and perform the responsibilities while simultaneously being a product owner, which is pretty typical in the New York City startup world. A lot of times when they're starting to build tech teams and companies are starting to grow, they don't have a set Scrum Master role, and a lot of that work just gets assumed, which it was only later in my career that I got to see the real beauty of having a totally balanced team with a full-time Scrum Master, and got to truly appreciate it. So I ended up wearing that hat quite a lot as a product manager, but I do come to Scrum honestly, and I come to Scrum Mastering honestly. When I was in college, I joined an organization and it was run by Robert's Rules. And I don't know if these are as common internationally, but it's basically like parliamentary procedure. It's a very formal way of running meetings. And to thrive in this organization, I had to learn these rules of engagement. And I got very into looking at how a system, whether it's Scrum or whether it's Robert's Rules or any other system, could be applied to either support or impede progress of a team. And so I've always been a bit of a nerd for that. And so it felt very natural to me that when I started working in tech and I started working with teams, I had these different ideas of how to run a meeting efficiently and how to get teams to talk and how to get people to engage in discussions on decisions that they were making. And so when I finally learned about Scrum and learned about what a Scrum Master should do, I realized that not having it on my team was something missing. So I played both of those roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And through that experience, I'm sure, especially because you had to wear multiple hats, right? I'm sure that you had some moments where you kind of raised your hands and said, okay, this is too much. I need help, right? And
Yes, absolutely.
for sure, we all go through those, and it's great if we can have help. Let's see how this story goes. I don't know what story you have to share with us, Chrissy, but share with us that story of a difficult moment you had in wearing that hat of the Scrum Master. And we'll dive to the takeaways and the details later. But tell us that story first.
Yeah. So how to choose one, because there are plenty that have not gone the way I would have wished. A lot of times it is trying to do both jobs at once that has backfired. And so I really, to the extent that I can recommend it to anybody listening, if you have a choice between having a Scrum Master as a separate person, please do. I love when they're separated, but being responsible for both and keeping the product moving and keeping the team aligned is a lot to ask out of one person. So there was one time I was on a team and I don't even remember what we were supposed to build, but leadership really wanted us to build something. The team, the engineers really did not want to build it. And so they started sandbagging their estimates and just saying, oh, it's going to take us 2 months. It would take us 2 months to build. And I don't come from a technical background. I come from a musical background. So I've had to rely my whole career on really getting to understand the logic of the code that we're writing, and working with our engineers. So I could sense that they were sandbagging, but I didn't stick up to the team. I felt like it was my responsibility to just convey what the team was saying. I couldn't get the lead engineer on board with me. So I just went back to leadership and said, well, the team says it's going to take 2 months. And leadership rightfully did not believe us and pushed back. And so finally, one engineer on the team got very fed up with the whole thing. She sat down for one weekend and knocked out the project that was supposedly going to take 2 months. And when she finished it in one weekend, it was done. But my credibility and the team's credibility was completely undermined, right? When you go from, oh, it's going to take us 2 months as a team to it took one person sitting down for a weekend to knock this out, all of our credibility was just shot. And we were all laid off shortly thereafter, not for that reason, but I think it made it easier when they were making big decisions about which teams were and weren't going to get involved in part of a layoff. I think it made it easier that the credibility was shot just with that one standoff.
Yeah. Well, so many times we are faced with what is the expectation or understanding of one person or multiple people versus the team, right? Like we, as Scrum Masters,
Yes.
that's always going to happen sooner or later, more serious, less serious, but it's always going to happen. So when you think about this story and looking back at what happened, like the team telling, it's going to take 2 months and then this person doing it over a weekend, like, what have you learned from that story now when you go back to the teams and you're discussing what to do next and trying to make decisions, and you have that in the back of your mind that, hey, it doesn't always take as long as I'm told?
Oh, absolutely. So first I learned I can't just be a conduit. I can't just be a messenger. That's never my role. And I have to take ownership. If I know something's not right, I can't pass it on. And that goes both ways, right? From leadership to the team, from the team to leadership. I have to have my own opinion. And any time that I've felt like I've really misnavigated these situations, it's because I was trying to please someone or something instead of being authentic to myself. So that was a huge, huge lesson. I was torn between loyalty to my team and to leadership, and I didn't take the time to tune into what I believed and to take the stand that I knew. Because you don't have anything if you don't have credibility. So the other thing I've learned, and I push on teams a lot, and I hope your audience isn't offended if I say I will also tell my teams, don't bullshit the bullshitter. So you need to be honest with me. If we need to pad it, if you're worried about what leadership is going to say or what our estimates are going to be, if you're nervous about being pressured into time, I will help with that. But you need to be honest with me. The honesty has to start with me. And so the other thing I learned is the importance of building with the team real trust, that they trust that if they say something's going to take 2 days, but we really don't want to do it, that I'm going to navigate that conversation responsibly.
Yeah. For me, the other aspect, so what you said is actually very important, right? Like create this kind of beginning from trust, right? Like, if you need help, you let me know and then we'll figure it out, right? The other thing that comes to mind is that very often there are attached implications to whatever the team is going to say, right? Like if the team said, 2 weeks, then there would be some implication. 2 months, it was too much. That's what we heard. But 2 weeks, maybe, I don't know, right? Like, so for me, what's really important is for us to also be clear about the implications. And to the point that these days I talk to the teams about, okay, so here's what leadership thinks this is worth, right? And if
Yes,
it's not
the
even
value.
close, yeah, exactly. And if it's not even close, let's not do it, right?
Yeah, you have to understand that too. And I think it's telling that I don't even remember what we were building. It wasn't that important. But that you have to understand the value of what you're building at all times. And that's also me wearing my product owner hat, right? That you always have to know what the value is. And you have to know I love the saying, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is the effort you're going to put in really yield the results that you want? And also helping your team navigate which battles are worth fighting, which hills you choose to die on. And that often comes from, I think none of us come into a totally fresh company where everything's neutral, right? There's always a history of teams being put upon to build things at the last minute or to build things in a way that's unreliable. And I find the Scrum Master often comes in the middle of a situation where there has already been a testing of trust on both sides. And so you have to be able to navigate the history of that as well. And it's never just about the thing you're building. There's always more going on. And I think the truly great Scrum Masters and the truly great team leaders understand that and get to a place where you can build trust, even from a place where there is already distrust, instead of just building it from neutral.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good way to put it. It's never only about the thing that we're building. There are always other things attached to it. Thank you for sharing that story, Chrissy.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.